In Autobiography of a Yogi, Swami Shri Yukteswar shares with Yoganandaji his meetings with Babaji. And one of the meetings was, it happened in Lahiri Mahashaya's house in Benares. That day, Shri Yukteswar came into the room and Lahiri Mahashaya said, "Oh, did you meet Babaji at the door?" And he didn't see Babaji. So I was like, what? And then Lahiri Mahashaya touched Shri Yukteswar's forehead, and immediately he saw Babaji standing near the door. And what Babaji said to him? He said, "Child, you have to meditate more. Your gaze is not yet faultless. You could not see me hiding behind the sunlight." So, God is everywhere, but we cannot see Him always, or most of the time, because our gaze is not yet faultless. God's love is flowing through all creation, but we are not able to feel it always, because our heart is not yet perfectly pure. So we think that, oh, he's a loving person, but this person is not. Or I like him, but I don't like her, that way. God is always trying to show us the truth, trying to show His love, but Maya hides that truth. It's like stars in the sky. During the day, we cannot see stars in the sky, but it doesn't mean they are not there. We are not able to see. Similarly, even though we may not see or feel His presence all the time, because of Maya, it doesn't mean that He's not there for us. In the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, "I, the unmanifested, pervade the entire universe. All creatures abide in me, though I abide not in them." He means that God, He is within us because He is omnipresent. But it doesn't mean that we, human beings, share His omnipresence. We achieve that omnipresence when we merge our ego into Him. Ramakrishna used this analogy of fish in the net to describe human tendency. Most of the fish, he said, when caught in the net, they try to run away and they go down and try to go into the mud at the bottom, thinking that that's the safest place. That's where they can escape from the danger. And similarly, we humans also, when we caught in Maya of this material world, we fool ourselves by going deeper and deeper into that material world, thinking, oh, chasing this, and then I will be happy. And maybe after many, many lifetimes, we are here because we realize that, am I happy? Swami Kriyananda said, "For those to whom the deepest reality of life is God, everything manifests Him. As every river flows to the sea, every thought then is infused with bliss." There was an artist, his name was Cellini, in Italy during the Renaissance. I think he was a sculptor, and he was doing some projects for the Pope. And at some point, the Pope got really angry at him. and threw him in a dungeon. Okay? So this dungeon was in a very, terrible condition. It's dark, cold, damp, rats running around. He only had this dirty, damp mattress for him. And in his cell, there was only one tiny window where the light was coming in only for 1 hour a day. And during that 1 hour, Cellini read the Bible. And for the rest of the time, he prayed to God. So basically, he was thinking of God all the time. God was his reality, not that cold, dark, damp dungeon. As a result, by the time he was released, his consciousness was so filled with God's love and joy. He was so uplifted. And he even said, if you want to know true happiness, arrange to be thrown into a dungeon. So, even when things look terrible on the outside, if our consciousness is centered in God, we can see beauty. We can see, feel God's love, God's joy in and all around us. No outward condition can take that away. People might blame you for some mistakes. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make you any worse. Or people might praise you, but it doesn't really make you better either. The only thing that really matters is our inner relationship with God. But I must say that sometimes God reveals himself in an unexpected, unique way. I'll share my little experience. A few years ago, around this time of the year, during monsoon, I was sick for a long time, and I was getting better, but I was still feeling that, I can't meditate or serve as much as I want, little disappointed, feeling little stressed. And one day I heard a Guru Bhai talking how, he's feeling Divine Mother's presence and her blessings in his life. So, wow. Then I thought, I feel Master close, but I don't really feel Divine Mother close to me. But Divine Mother has so many children. She can't be close to everyone. It's okay, I thought to myself. A few hours later, I was walking down the driveway, raining, a little drizzling, and I suddenly saw a gigantic snail. Okay? Its shell was this big, like as big as my fist. But it was so beautiful, graceful, and elegant, like a queen. And then this silent voice came to me that, do you think I'm not with you? It's a little interesting choice of form for Divine Mother, but she slowly walked in front of me, crossed the driveway, disappeared into the garden. And then I got the message that, yes, it's okay. Just look up, look ahead, and move on at your own pace. It's completely fine. So, God knows, hears our thoughts, and she comes to us if we are open, if we are sensitive, paying attention to her silent message. I referred to Cellini's words, if you want to know what true happiness is, arrange to be thrown into dungeon. What is true happiness? Eventually, ultimate true happiness comes when we merge into God, but we don't have to wait for that moment. We can experience true happiness. It is it doesn't come through books or scriptures or talks. It comes through our own experiences, and not that outwardly flashy experience, but those insignificant moments that doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but really changes you from inside, like my experience with the snail. Those moments, through those moments, we develop the knowing that we, the little waves, are part of that big ocean of God. We are inseparable from the big ocean of God. And to know that, to have that knowing, makes our life already meaningful. A French saint said, if you knew how much God loves you, you would die for joy. So why wait until the last moment? We can live in that joy, with that knowing of oneness with God. As Babaji said to Sri Yukteswar, meditate more, and let us aspire to make our gaze faultless, to see God everywhere. Jai Guru.
There was a very great mathematician in 3rd century Greece, Archimedes, and he discovered all kinds of things that we still use today. And there was a 10th century parchment written with the mathematical proofs and truths that he had discovered. And one day, in the 13th century, 3 centuries later, a monk needed a piece of parchment and took that parchment and wrote over it his own prayer to God. And then centuries later, somebody else found that parchment and used it to paint a painting. So the parchment was covered over and covered over. And then it took modern technology, today's modern technology, or probably a couple of decades ago, and then they discovered these truths that Archimedes had put in, had discovered, that were written on the parchment in the 10th century. So it was uncovered after all this time. And so God writes on the parchment of our heart the truths of our soul. He implants in our consciousness the truth of who we are. But we keep covering it up with lots of different things, and we don't feel that oneness of that truth, that you are my child, you are a soul of eternity, I created you, you are like me, and go out and multiply. We cover it up with, I'm separate, because somehow or another we got separated and our soul forgot, and we started identifying that this is who I am this body, I am these senses, I am what I look like, I am this country, I'm this religion, I'm this gender, and we just covered it up and we forgot. So centuries go by, incarnations go by, so many incarnations, when we think that we're something else. And at some point in these incarnations, some grace comes, or some karmic bomb happens, and suddenly we are desperately in pain, or we're desperately seeking happiness, and suddenly the light goes on, and we turn back towards that infinite source of our soul, and realize we were always one with God. My story, since we're sharing stories, I was about 20. I was living abroad for my college year, 1 year of my college, and I was feeling really lonely. And I was in a forest. And I was just crying. I didn't even know what I was crying for, but I was just crying. I was in pain because I felt separation. And I guess there was just a longing of my soul to not be separate And suddenly I had this wave from Divine Mother of just pure love, just like settled on me like a cloud. And it was just, I don't know where it came from. I was just suddenly, I was sort of in bliss. I went from crying to being sort of in bliss, just with this love, feeling so much love, like I wanted to hug myself. And I knew it was not of this world. I know it wasn't from the trees that were next to me or the rock I was sitting on. It was something bigger than that. And since then, I wanted to know, or at that point, I wanted to know, how can I have this feeling more often? This was by accident. This I didn't try for. This just came. This wasn't me doing it. So, but how can I get that more and more? Because then I realized that this is really the best thing I've had so far in life. I want more of it. And so, life goes on. I probably forgot that lesson. And I think many, many years later, I was also again in pain after, and working and relationships and jobs and so many things happened. But then I was also, just feeling this desperate pain. And lo and behold, what happened? Somebody said, go to Ananda. I found Ananda. So then with Ananda, I started meditating. And that ability to go inside, but suddenly, once again, for the first time in many, many years, I started seeking inside again. And suddenly I felt that oneness that I'd been seeking since I was 20. And once again, grace comes into our lives. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know how to attract it necessarily. Jesus Christ said to a high priest that was a rabbi at the time, he said of the Spirit, he said, we don't know. Spirit is like a wind, and we don't know where the wind comes from. We don't know where the wind is going, but we can feel the effects of Spirit. And so, such are the great men of God that come already God aware. The great ones come, and they have that awareness. They know where this grace comes from. They know where love is. They are one with the sea. Wave of the sea, dissolve in the sea. The masters, the great masters, they're already one with the sea. One time Yogananda said to Swami Kriyananda, I'm just a bulge on the ocean. Just a bulge on the ocean of spirit. Masters never losing contact with the power of the ocean. And because they never lose that contact and they're one with that power, they can control grace. They can bring grace to us, to save us, to uplift us, to bring that power and that love with us. And so when we're attuned to that, we can also receive that grace that they're always shining upon us. And so just look at how the great masters come. Buddha came during a period where devotees were not taking responsibility for their own spiritual life. And he said, you must do the work. You must go inside. Krishna came, gave us so many teachings that we follow every day. And Christ came, then Babaji came, then our line of masters came. All of them came to be vibrating to us the truths of our own souls. And we may have the eyes to see, we may have the ears to hear, but when that time comes, we should grasp that opportunity, because for incarnations, we didn't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear, and all we did was follow our senses and believe that this little ego was who I was, and that I needed to defend it and fight for it and hold on to it. Me, or us four and no more, or my nation, not yours, or my religion and not yours. This is the power of the ego's Maya on us. And the masters are coming with that flow of grace, these men of God, these men of spirit, that know where and how to connect with the flow of God that's flowing through our life all the time. And they show us how. And so in meditation, we try to dive deep into that grace. We hand the reins of our senses that have kept us so bound to our egos with desires. We hand the reins over to Krishna. And he drives our chariot, and he takes control of our senses, and we give up that control gladly. If God is guiding my chariot, I cannot lose in the battlefield of life, because every day is, in fact, a battle. You know, we need to choose. We need to choose. Are we on the side of union with God, of wanting to go deeper and deeper into that experience of the flow of grace in my life? Or am I jumping into the flow of Maya, taking me ever further away from that grace? And both have infinite power. That power of Maya can take us away. Yogananda called it satanic power. And they only can influence us as we allow them. We ask for their help, for their influence. So we want to be sure and ask the right side. And as Yogananda said, once you wake up, don't go back to sleep again. I think I went back to sleep after I was 20. I slept almost till 36. You know, it's easy to go back to sleep again because we're used to being asleep. We're used to letting the ego take charge. This feels good to me. I feel secure. I feel like I want to be in control. But that's when we're least secure, because we need God to be holding the reins and driving the chariot and fighting our battle for us. And so when that happens, when we let God take control of our senses, suddenly we have that union with oneness. And even living in the senses, the world is so beautiful. You know, we can enjoy a sunset and be in our ego and say, wow, that's beautiful. But if you have control of your senses and you feel God's grace through that sunset and through his eyes, you're looking at the colors of the cosmos that he has created. Suddenly you have a transcendental bliss with that sunset. Everything in this world becomes richer, becomes more beautiful. It's not like, oh, I have to give up the ego and life becomes boring and life becomes dull. It's the opposite. Life becomes more and more beautiful. And the challenges in our relationships and our colleagues at work, you know, the masters see us as we are, children of light. Suddenly, if we're having that union, it's like, these are also children of light. Master sees me as a child of light. We are all children of light. I'm doing the best I can to learn my lessons and love others. And this person, even though he may not be thinking that or wanting to do that, this is God trying to emerge from him. His soul is trying to come out. He's doing the best he can for whatever he knows, for whatever place of soul evolution that he is. We have to give them that credit. We have to know that if God can flow through my life, he's also flowing through them. Otherwise, just back to the ego. No, not this one, not this one. Back to the ego. There we are. Perhaps another incarnation flies away. So, are we doing the best we can to stay in the flow of grace that is always coming to us? You know, Baduri Mahashaya said to Yogananda in Autobiography, the levitating saint, he said, you often go into the silence, but do you have anubhava? Do you have actual God perception? So in our meditation, let's not be passive. Let's strive for that God perception. You know, even Swami Kriyananda, when he was teaching us Kriya Yoga, he said, you know, the deepest part, the most important part of Kriya Yoga, of the technique, I cannot teach you. You have to get it from the inside, through your practice. So everything comes from that union inside that will allow us to guide our lives. And so once we feel that union, once we feel that joy, once we can see and hear and perceive the flow of grace from the consciousness of our gurus to us, the consciousness of Divine Mother flowing to us in the snails, in the sunsets, then the way to reinforce that in our lives is to share it with others, perceive others that way, and share that understanding with others. If nothing else, by example, if not in words. And as you know here, we share that by sharing meditation, by telling other people, you know, I found peace, I found happiness because I learned how to meditate. I'm going deeper and deeper and feeling that union inside. But also through spiritual fairs. We have 2 spiritual fairs a year in March and September. And our second spiritual fair of the year is coming up in September. And it's one of the ways that we can consciously be channels of this love, of this joy that we have found through perception of the divine with others. You know, we're just humble spiritual people trying to share whatever gives us joy. And so that's coming up. Maybe you're going to be asked to do some seva for that. If you would like, we would love for you to join us. But let's just dive deep in that channel, being a channel for that flow of grace. The gurus come, they're channels for us. They're trying to bring us up so we can be channels for them and of God's grace in this world. God bless you.